it's just something you're not taught. This is not something you're going through high school and learning, but it's something you have to have. And so people get it, not understanding what it is necessarily, and it's not their job to know. It's our job to teach them.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Louisiana Farm Bureau podcast. I'm your host, Karl Wiggers, and today we're talking about insurance. And for anyone that's maybe ever met me out in the field, and I introduce myself saying I work for Louisiana Farm Bureau, typically the first thing that I get is, I got a problem with my insurance, or my insurance rates are too high. And I'm always really quick to say, no, look, I am not your guy, because my insurance rates are high too. But I do have today a couple of guys that are insurance agents that do work in the insurance world and can help answer some of these questions that I always get. And so that's kind of what today's episode is going to be all about, is talking through some of the, I'm calling it frequently asked questions or frequently misunderstood issues in the insurance world. Marshall Kane, Brian Hall, thank you guys for joining me on the podcast today.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Y'all are both Baton Rouge area. I know, Marshall, you live in New Roads. You work
in Burley, West Baton Rouge.
West Baton Rouge market, and Brian's East Baton Rouge. He's my agent.
Baton Rouge, yeah.
My guy. So I felt excited to have someone I'm pretty familiar with. We've had some of these conversations off of a podcast. So whenever we first say this, though, whenever I talk about y'all are my agents, y'all agents for Farm Bureau, what comes to mind when I say that word? Does it have a bad vibe to it?
I mean, I don't want to be viewed as sales. I don't want to be a salesperson. I really kind of look at it like I am going to explain to you what's going on and help you in your decisions just to make you better. It's kind of how I view that.
Does it bother you that I call you an agent?
No, I mean, it's a good thing. For me as an agent, I like to be a consultant. I like to be somebody that you can call, run things by, get advice from. That's a big part of what we do.
One thing I think of whenever, even though I work for the Federation and they are separate companies, there are a lot of overlap, but we'll have agents come through the building all the time, come in the studio, we'll do work with. One thing I've picked up on is a lot of y'all's job is about relationship. Would y'all agree with that statement?
100%. 100%. But I want people to trust us, that's what we shoot them straight, tell them the truth, and we're building relationships.
One of the things that makes us Farm Bureau great is that we do have local agents that are from the area. And so oftentimes we already have relationships with people in the community. And so we just build on that. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, what makes us special.
That's one of the things that's really cool. And you talk about being local. I remember when Francine came through here just a few weeks ago, I saw you on Facebook. You're posting like, hey, storm's coming, offices are closed. I'm battening down the hatches at my house, but I've got my command center ready. Call me if you got any issues. Call me if you need help. And I did, actually. I reached out to you at like 6 o'clock on the evening before it came through. And I was like, hey, what's my coverage on some sheds I have in my backyard? And you answered that question real quick for me. But I remember being like, man, that's kind of a trip that 6 o'clock on a weekday evening, I could just pick up the phone and call you and you answer the questions I needed. So I'm commending you, but also I know, Marshall, that's not something that Brian himself is doing. I know you're taking those calls weekends, evenings, doesn't really matter for y'all. That's what kind of makes y'all special, right?
That is what makes us special. We all do that. It's a good agency for us. A lot of insurers, they have our cell phones. They text us, they call us. I mean, that's the point of it. We're available.
I've mentioned the Federation, I mentioned the insurance company, the commonality, the common ground there. To have an insurance policy with Louisiana Farm Bureau Insurance, you are also going to be a member of Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. How do y'all have that discussion? How does that discussion go often with people that you're visiting with about getting a new policy maybe, or someone that maybe is a returning customer that is like, wait, what's this $50, this $45 a year? What am I doing? What is that?
I kind of go all in when they ask me, because I like to hit on things that are important to me too. And when somebody asks me about the membership, I'll ask them, how do you feel about trying to buy enough farmland out in the Midwest? And nobody likes that. It's like, well, a portion of this membership goes to keep that from happening and keep U.S. land in U.S. hands. And that's really, really important to me. And I think that's important to a lot of people. And usually when I bring that up, they're happy to pay that $50.
Yeah, that representation that, reaching further than West Baton Rouge or their community of Bruley or wherever it may be, they got a bigger reach. How does that go here in East Baton Rouge for you?
Yeah, same thing. Kind of how we talked about having an agent and having representation and someone you can talk to that you feel is looking out for you. And that's kind of what the membership does for us. Everything we do requires a presence at the Capitol, and we put a lot of resources into making sure Louisiana's great.
We're going to talk about the price, and I don't want people to listen to this first 5 minutes of this podcast and be like, well, are you going to address the elephant in the room? Insurance is expensive, a lot of regulation, a lot of big factors, global factors that go into the rates and the way they are and why they are the way they are. But you mentioned that, like, Farm Bureau has folks in Baton Rouge at the Capitol working to try and help the policy holders, maybe get some relief on some lower rates. So I think that's a very valuable piece to sell to someone that's got a policy. So
absolutely.
I'm curious to hear what you say about this, Brian, but I feel like over in West Baton Rouge, you probably deal with a lot more farmers.
I've got some farmers over there. I've got sugarcane farmers over there. So
do you hear, but I'm curious though, do you hear a lot of folks that are not farmers that say, oh, well, I want to support my neighbors. I know the work is going to help support the neighbors of mine that do farm. Do you get that sentiment some?
Whenever we talk about membership too, we'll talk, obviously I mentioned what I said first, but it's expensive when you go buy groceries, it's expensive, right? Well, that's the other thing that Farm Bureau membership does too. It's trying to keep those grain production. It's going to help those farmers do that. So whenever I bring something like that up, well, yeah, everybody knows there's farmers all in South Louisiana, cane farmers and the rest. So of course it's going towards them, and they like that. It's local. People are proud of where they're from. So they're happy to be able to pay some of those membership fees, that it's going to something local.
That's cool. I'm glad to hear that, because I see it out in the field, but most of what I deal with on the Federation side are those farmers. So it's nice to hear that some of the non-farm customers, members are kind of on board with that mission that we are pushing here. I talked about, Brian, you're my agent, and you helped me kind of get insurance on the house that I'm in now. And I remember when we had this discussion, I was like, look, I'm as ignorant as can be. And anyone that's probably listening to this podcast probably is like, yep, we know the role you play, Karl. But I'm not playing it to be self-deprecating. I'm just saying I'm not very intelligent when it comes to the insurance policies I have. And I'm sure, I guess before we get going, is that normal? Not to say people are dumb, but people aren't as informed and educated on the policies. Just a blanket statement. Is that a fair thing to say?
It's just something you're not taught. This is not something you're going through high school and learning, but it's something you have to have. And so people get it, not understanding what it is necessarily, and it's not their job to know. It's our job to teach them.
Yeah. You said this a minute ago about
this is kind of funny. I'm going to roll myself under the bus here, but yeah, when I started, I haven't done insurance all my life. So when I started, they asked me, so what are your liability? And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know what that was. So, I'm normal, at least I think so anyway. So, most people don't. They don't know what that is.
Well, whenever I was having this discussion about my new home that I was buying with Brian, I was like, what does this mean? You have signing a bunch of papers, and I was like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. It was really eye-opening to me, but I've been wanting to do a podcast like this where I can kind of pick some brains and learn a little bit more about coverage I have. I have auto insurance, I have home insurance, I have life insurance, I have all these different things. I don't really know them. I know I need them. I know I'm supposed to have them. So what I want to do today is talk through some of those most misunderstood terms. You just mentioned the liability, and you were like, I don't know what that means. So let's start with auto, an auto policy. Someone comes in the office and says, Marshall, Brian, I've got full coverage. Does that just make your skin crawl a little bit when they say like they've got it made, they got it going on?
They think they throw it down. They just, I got everything. I got full coverage, but that really I don't know what that means. That means you've got comprehensive and you've got collision, but I don't know what your liability limits are. I don't know if you got uninsured motorists. I don't know any numbers to try to even match or look at what you have now. So yeah, full coverage means nothing to me, really.
Do y'all hear that a lot though? Like the people come in
and all the time.
Is that a thing just that's inherited, I guess? Is that a term that's out in the world that just says like?
I think it's really unfortunate because I think there are a lot of people out there that do push insurance and they are selling insurance, but they're not educating the consumer on what they're getting. And that's what I think, gives a lot of insurance people a bad name is we've got to be better at explaining what this is. We shouldn't expect anybody to buy anything that they don't fully understand what it is.
So is someone buying a comprehensive policy, getting a comprehensive policy and just equating that to full coverage? Is that kind of how that happens?
Sometimes I think that does happen because there's just lack of understanding, and it's just they're just buying what they think that they need, but they really don't know.
Yeah, and your exposure and what you're protected on has limits to it in any policy. And so full coverage, a lot of people are under the impression that means full. I mean, the whole house comes with it, the whole car, anything that happens, no matter what I do, I'm protected. And so it's on us to explain that to people and educate them on, look, here's what you have, because a lot of people don't even know. They come out from other companies and they have policies and they slap full coverage down and they're under the impression it's doing something that it's not. And so oftentimes we'll find after educating people, they're more than happy to do it. They just didn't know what they didn't know. And so again, that's what makes me happy is having value.
That means you're more than an agent. You're a teacher.
That's the part I love about it. Yeah, it's teaching.
Marshall, you mentioned the term a minute ago, liability limits. Where does that come to play in the terms of this full coverage or this discussion of auto insurance?
Well, liability limits are probably the most important thing that you have on the policy, but it's really overlooked because everybody is really concerned with, what's going to go on with my car if I get in a wreck. And that is important, but if you're in a wreck and it's your fault, you really want to be concerned with those liability limits. I mean, say you've got minimum coverage and minimum property damage coverage is $25,000. I mean, everybody knows now what cars cost. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, you run into the back of a brand new SUV, a Tahoe, and what's a Tahoe cost now? I don't know, $70,000, $80,000. But you've got $25,000 in property damage coverage. That's all. There's the limit to it. That's why they are your liability limits.
So me as the insured motorist that has that policy, that has the $25,000 liability limit, if I run into that Tahoe, I get a check from Farm Bureau, or that motorist gets a check for $25,000, but I totaled their car. Is it on me as the one that has that policy to come up with the rest?
Yes, it's going to come back on the insured.
So I'm not really insured.
No, and that's where it really is important, and that's what really sets Farm Bureau apart is there are so many agents, and we're a phone call away. And if you don't know what you have or you're unsure of what you have, call us. We want you to call us. We want to explain this to you and tell you what you have. Make sure that you're covered properly, so if something bad does happen to you, you're okay. That's what we're looking for, is to make you whole.
Does that, changing that limit, or not changing the limit, changing your coverage to where it's, not just the state minimum or the required minimum, but bumping it up to $50,000 or $100,000, does that really move the needle on your premium a lot?
It's far relative to what you're paying. No, it's something most people, again, are willing to do if they know. I
mean, it's a lot cheaper to pay a few dollars extra on a premium every month than to have to come out of pocket a huge chunk whenever you have an accident, right?
Agree.
Yeah, I think it's important. A lot of people, they're willing to pay whatever they think they need to pay as long as they feel protected and they make, it makes sense and they've been educated about it. It's for them to make that decision once we explain what that is and how that works.
And it usually kind of sells itself, I'm assuming.
Yeah, of course it does.
Nobody wants to be riding around with that risk. That's why we have insurance, right?
Yeah, that's why. Most people will do the right thing if they're educated on it. If you go to a doctor, you'll do what he tells you to do if he tells you to do it. You don't know until he tells you, though. And so that
tells you the importance of whatever that exercise or medicine is.
Tells you the consequences, tells you your avenues you can go down to fix it. And so that's kind of what we do is we look at the problem, we educate people and help them find solutions.
You mentioned, the price of vehicles now and liability limits, the state minimums. Is it safe to say that state minimum does not really cover much these days, that you should always probably bump up beyond the minimum?
I think that what I think the question you asked is, I think that you need to call. If you are concerned about it, you need to go and talk to your agent, go in and go see them and really do a review and look at what you have, ask the questions and let them really explain it to you so you can make a good decision for you based on that information.
I think a review probably is a valuable thing for any of us to do with our insurance policies. Is that a regular checkup, just like you mentioned, a doctor, going to a doctor visit? Is that something we should do monthly, not monthly, annually?
Annually is a good idea. It's like anything that's important to you. You need to check on it, and usually, an annual basis on this is a good thing. 2 policy renewals on a car, 1 on a home,
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll say one thing about a review. I mean, a lot can happen to a person in a year. I mean, just different things. I mean, you may get a promotion, you may change jobs, you may do this. Whenever you come in for a review, it's not us trying to look for ways to make you spend more money. We're really just looking at making sure that what's going on with you, everything is covered correctly.
Mm-hmm.
We're not missing discounts. We're not missing coverages. Like it's just a process to help us help you is all that is.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make because it's not. I mean, I can see. Granted, I bump into you guys all the time in this office or out in the field, but I can see someone saying, "Well, I don't want to go to that guy. He's going to just try and sell me more life insurance or whatever it may be." It's not that. It may end up in increasing a policy here or there, but it's for the protection and that not for the premium. And I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but it's not about the premium, but it's about that coverage and helping that customer.
Right. And that's the part we care about. Taking premiums is something we have to do to keep the promise.
Well, let's talk about homes. Okay. I mentioned, I had a lot of questions as soon as I was filling out my paperwork for my new home I bought. I felt like I was just taking a lot in, trying to understand it. And I still probably don't as well as I should, but I know y'all probably deal with that. And I feel like that's an area that's just like such a tough pill to swallow when you're buying home insurance, when you're shopping for that. It's a lot. It's a big thing to spend money on. And you talked about it earlier, Marshall, it's protecting one of your biggest assets.
Yeah, definitely. Home is definitely your biggest asset that you have.
But it's something that we probably don't understand very well. How important is it to understand and to get educated on our home policies?
Very important. That's a big deal. Is that's what you can take into your own hands. Is you can go get with your agent. You can ask questions. You did that with me. You called me and I have questions, and I was able to answer those questions, which helped you learn. Again, we keep relating back to a doctor. You're never gonna, even though they'll educate you and to help you, you're never gonna understand medicine, unless you go get a degree in medicine. So there's a lot to it, and insurance is one of those things that it's a category of you need a professional. And that's one of those things.
I started making a list, and I asked other people. I've kind of quizzed people around the office and even at home. What are some of those things that, when you think about your home policy or even your auto policy, what are things that you don't understand? And one of the number one things that the words, or not even things you don't understand, I think a lot of us get what a deductible is, but that's a word that came up a lot. Is that something you're explaining daily, you guys?
Daily. The wind hail deductible is really the big deductible that everybody's concerned. I mean, in South Louisiana, what's the risk? Wind, hurricane, something like that. So the wind and hail deductible is the big thing that people are concerned with. And in my parish, I don't know if it's the same in all of yours, but in mine's going to be a 3% wind and hail, which that's great. What does that mean? 3% is...
I have no clue what that means.
3% of the coverage amount of the home. So say the house is $300,000, that's $9,000 deductible. So if there's anything wind related, any wind event that causes damage to that house, you're going to pay the first $9,000. And we're going to take care of the rest of that, obviously depending on the type of policy and whatnot, but just that's how that looks, the 3% wind and hail.
So I've got a roof that has a lot of shingles missing. I've got a leak, all this kind of stuff. It's going to cost me $20,000 to fix it. Is that I don't even know what a roof costs, but I know it probably varies on a lot of factors.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I no clue.
That sounds good.
But that first $9,000 is coming out of my checkbook.
Right.
And then from there is where the policy picks up. That's how that works.
Exactly.
Correct.
If more than just the roof is damaged, I mean, asking questions now. If more than the roof is damaged and I have, I don't know, some roof and siding, is that same $9,000?
It's going to be that same wind and hail event. If it's related to a wind claim and it's one event, it's going to go with that one deductible. So you put in $9,000, an adjuster is going to come out there. They're going to assess the whole place and they're going to go from there.
So limbs got thrown into my window and I got a shattered window and
wind and hail event.
Roof. Okay. Interesting. So is that something that y'all, that people push back on? Like, not push back on, but is that something that I guess brings up, is that a friction point for customers often, or is that just a lack of understanding?
And that's a big reason why I think there is a little friction on it, is because oftentimes when we're explaining that, it's the first time someone's hearing it. And so they may have been under a different impression until that point, even though it wasn't true. And so that's something, every now and then we get some pushback. But again, once we explain, why that is, how that works, again, it's something people can live with.
I can just hear it right now. Like, man, I'm paying $5,000 a year for this policy. Why am I also having to pay this deductible? Why am I also... Like, what do I have insurance for? I can just hear that. I'm sure y'all probably have heard those types
words.
of comments.
Yeah, we hear that.
What do you say back to that? It's not just lying in y'all's pockets. Y'all aren't doing that for...
No.
That's not... I guess Farm Bureau is not just hiking prices because everybody else is.
No, and that's a really good point, is right now we focus on premium a lot, especially in Louisiana because of the changing environment.
About we as agents or
we as consumers, just people. We focus on the price of the insurance right now. And so a big deal is that we make the promise, we pay the claim, and the premium is a reflection of what it takes to make that true.
So to be able to stand by the fact that say, I will replace your house if that storm comes, I will be there. I will as Farm Bureau, we'll be there to put a new roof on your house when a hurricane comes through.
I mean, I'll say this. You think about, we all watching the news right now. We're watching Milton going to Florida. Let's say a cold front didn't come through here and Milton's coming north and it comes right up the mouth of the Mississippi River. Yeah, it's a $5,000 premium. You're going to pay $9,000, but if your house is wiped down to the slab, that's a pretty good deal. And that's what we're here for. That's why you pay the premium. We're going to put you back whole. That's the biggest asset you have, and you would be wrecked financially without it, and we're not going to let that happen to you. We are going to take care of you if the worst case scenario comes through here. And it can happen. It's happening twice in Florida in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So we're just lucky. But that's why we're here. That's why we pay those premiums. And that's why we stand behind you. Like, we are ready for that event.
Yeah, I guess it's safe to say, on that $300,000 house you were just talking about, if that premium is $5,000 a year, you could go quite a few years without a policy or without a claim. And then when that claim is needed, when you do have that devastating event, it still came out ahead. Which is, it's tough to say because money's tight, inflation's real,
right?
Like in today's world, like we all need a few more dollars in our budget every month, but like you can't replace. Being able to self-insure is just
I'm paying. I'm not going to sit here and say I enjoy paying homeowners premium. I don't get a discount for that. I pay the same thing you're paying. Is it fun to pay? No, it is not fun to pay. There would definitely be something I would rather spend money on than insurance. But I know that if something catastrophic happens, I know I'm going to be okay because I've got Farm Bureau.
Yeah, and I know Farm Bureau, and I get excited about this, is they plan to pay. And that's something I think that may be unique.
Have y'all ever tried to put a price tag or a dollar amount to the peace of mind that your customers can go to bed with at night?
I don't know if you can really.
It's you, for instance, called me before the last hurricane, and you really wanted to make sure it was going to be okay, and it was going to be okay. We talked about what you had, what the consequences if something happened, and we were good. And so there was peace of mind there. And so you went to bed that night, it was going to be okay.
I can't imagine going through talking about Florida and Milton and Helene, but like 2 storms in a row coming up there that way, that's devastating. But to have that without the promise of a Farm Bureau or a good agent at their side to be able to walk through that storm with them, like I can't imagine what that must be like. And I hate that for folks that have experienced that. I know it could be us next week. And I'm praying it's not, but that's one of the things that I feel like even me and my wife had that discussion. She's like, is there not a cheaper like policy we can go find somewhere? Is there not a different company we could go to? And I work at Farm Bureau. I don't work for the insurance company. I don't get a discount either, Marshall. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, it just is what it is. But I know that if there's a claim to be made, and I'm not saying this because I can walk around the corner to claims. I'm saying this because I've seen it time and time again through storms that Farm Bureau is there. And honestly, probably usually one of the quicker ones to pay out. Is that true too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
We don't have to quote that directly.
No, it's my favorite thing, and I don't want to give out any timelines, but I do enjoy seeing our roofs being the first ones repaired. And so, we're not one of those blue tarp people. When you ride by somebody's house that's had a blue tarp on it for 6 months, so they don't have Farm Bureau.
Yeah, I remember going up to where the tornado struck in Mississippi, and there were agents set up in a mobile home. Their slab was wiped clean from a tornado in Rolling Fork, Mississippi, and they had a mobile home parked there within days of the storm coming through and wiping out the office, and people were walking in and out of that trailer house with checks in their hands.
That's amazing.
And I was just like, I think that was right around the same time I was fixing to buy this house. And I remember being like, there's no question for me. Like, that is that promise you're talking about. And I guess as an agent, does that make y'all proud?
Yeah, it does. That's why, it's easy because I've done this too. The reason why it was easy for you to answer that phone at 6 o'clock on a Saturday when you called him was he knows they're going to pay. He knows that Farm Bureau is going to do the right thing and stand behind the promise. And that's why it's easy for us to make those phone calls. We're not running away. We're not dodging the insured. Like, we're there. We're easy to find because we know we're going to do the right thing.
Yeah. You can say that we're going to pay. We're not gonna wash up with the next storm that comes through. But with that rising price and people saying, man, how high is it going to go? What do y'all kind of say back to folks that they're upset about the price or questioning why are premiums going up so bad? What do y'all kind of I guess respond to that with?
Well, one big thing is right then sit down and do a review, because oftentimes they don't understand what they have and what we're going to do. And so that helps a lot right there. And again, you see the premium every month. You don't see a claim every month. And that's something I try to explain, is that we can get caught on the premium and think that's what this whole transaction's about. And it's not. It's not a transaction. It's a relationship. And so this is just a reflection of what it costs for us to keep our promise. And so keeping the promise is the important part. You can make a promise. You can collect premium. But keeping the promise is a different deal.
Do you deal with a lot of that over in the other side of the
I think we all deal with that, as a state. As an industry, I think we deal with that. And I will agree with what Brian said. We just have to really explain what we're doing, educate the client. And when the client sees what we're about and they understand where those premium dollars are going, then it makes it a little more palatable to pay that.
I know it's not fun talking about some of these issues of price, and I appreciate you guys doing that, because I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. But I love that we can talk about the promise, and I know that y'all have seen it. I've seen it, not personally, thank God, but I know I've seen it, firsthand, all around the state where folks are being made whole and that promise is being kept. So thank y'all for what y'all do and y'all's part in that. And making sure that our customers are covered and can recover and be made whole, and not more so wreck their lives, by a storm that comes through, or even just a car wreck that totals out a vehicle. And that's important. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate what y'all do for the Farm Bureau. If you want to have a review with one of these guys or anybody else in your parish and close to your home or where you do business, we'll have a link in the show notes to find your agent closest to you. This is not a sales podcast. This is not meant to be salesy, but as you've heard, it's very important to know what your coverage is and know how you'll be affected when a storm comes or tragedy maybe strikes. To learn more about Farm Bureau Insurance, to learn more about Farm Bureau Federation, the benefits of being a member, head over to the show notes and we'll link those to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, share it with a friend maybe. I hope this has been informative to you. If you need to learn more about some of those things, we'll try to do another podcast maybe if you have some of those questions, put them down in the comments. I can't answer everything, but I'll try and ask one of these guys to help me answer some of them. But share it with a friend, subscribe, follow this page. We really appreciate you listening, and we'll see you again next time on the Louisiana Farm Bureau podcast.